I've been a professional card game player for years, and today we're going to put all the Genius Invocation cards on a tier list. We have 5 tiers here: needs a nerf, self-explanatory, best cards in the game. Obviously not all these will be nerfed, but these are just the all-around best cards. Any card that is overpowered to say will go in this tier. All-around good card. The cards that are slightly weaker, they don't really need a nerf. They're probably fine in their current state, but these are the cards you will see most frequently aside from the broken ones. Next tier is fine at best. Self-explanatory. These cards are fine, you can play them. Some of the top decks might run them, but they're probably not the best cards in the game. They're strong, probably not overpowered. Pretty niche. These cards are not very good. They have a couple decks that might see some form of playability, but they aren't the top tier. They aren't even good cards. In other card games, I would say they need probably buffs, but with the way Genius Invocation works, weaker cards can still shine due to having 3 main character cards at a time. Some of these like niche cards can see play in certain decks, but aside from that, not great. Unplayable Lamau, these cards, dog water. They're not good. If you're running them, you're just lowering your win rate massively. Only like enthusiasts or people who really like a certain playstyle should play these cards. Typically, these cards just aren't good. Starting with Ayaka. In normal Genshin, I'm an Ayaka main. In Genius Invokation, I'm also a filthy Ayaka main. This card, overpowered. If you played online against real players, Ayaka, one of the best cards. Typically sees play in the Yoimiya deck. It's probably at the bottom of the overpowered tier. It's not at the top. You can make an argument to say it's an all-around good card because it does need enabling to be good, but it's honestly one of the best cards in the game. It's just, the Cryo Infusion is so insane. I think the only card that enables combos as strongly as Ayaka is, well, aside from Yoimiya, obviously, is Cyno. I think Cyno and Ayaka are the 2 main carries that you use, so they're probably 2 of the best cards. Honestly, we're talking about Cyno now, so I'll just put him in the tier as well. I think Cyno is also in the overpowered tier. I think, realistically, like the tier is called needs a nerf, but there's not really many cards that do except for Yoimiya, but I would say in general, these are 2 of the best cards, 2 of the 3 best cards in the game, without a doubt. Barbara, just like in Genshin, I'll be honest with you, pretty awful. I played a lot of decks. I've never seen Barb be playable. Barb is awful in the card game. She's just not good. You don't really need healing in Genius Invocation for cards, and her general effect just isn't good. Other cards do things better, so Barb is just kind of unplayable. Mr. Bennett, I'll be honest, in normal Genshin, Bennett, easily one of, if not the best 4 stars. In the card game, he's just not good. I wouldn't say he's unplayable, he's better than Barb, but even then, it's kind of a stretch. I'd say niche, pretty niche. With more cards and event cards releasing, you'll get more support, but as of now, it's just not particularly great. Chung Yun, an interesting one. When the game first came out, a lot of people thought Chung Yun was really bad in the card game, but as lists developed over time, he started seeing more play, specifically in the Ayaka Yoimiya deck, in place of the Fatui agent. I believe it was the Fatui agent was the 3rd slot people were using. It was more of like a counter because like just having the extra freeze was good. It lets you have more combos with Yoi. It wasn't like entirely reliant on Ayaka. You could have a play in case your Ayaka died. So I wouldn't say he needs a nerf. I think he is an all-around good card though. I think you'll continue to see play. After the balance changes, you'll probably still see play in some decks. Not as strong as some of the other cards within the all-around good card tier, so probably towards the end of it, but he is a very strong, solid card. All right, Kale. I don't think she needs a nerf. I think she is good though. I think she's a solid card, better than Chung Yun probably. The issue is summon decks just aren't as good as like the other stuff. Like the on-hit reaction is so strong. Like running like the on-hit OTK stuff is just so powerful that everything else feels too slow. Like summon decks are just like a little too slow because you can just kill your opponent on turn 2, 3, or 3 usually, like consistently. So like summons just take a little bit more time to rev up. Like in my world where I'm playing the OTK decks, my opponent's summons don't get the chance to go off. They have the summons and I don't let them go off, I just kill them. So it's like, summon decks are just worse. They'd probably see play otherwise though, if like this stuff wasn't so strong. D-Luke is pretty niche. He's good as a starter card, and he's like pretty fun to play, but he's just not very good. His burst does do a lot of damage, as Kali in chat said. His burst does a lot of damage, but it takes too long to really rev stuff up. You're like 1 to 2 turns slower than everyone else is with their decks. And you have to invest like a lot of resources into setting it up. Next up is Diona. I'll be honest, Diona sees such a little play, I had to Google to double check what she did. I was pretty sure she gave a shield and she healed, which is what she does. And as I said with Bennett, or Barbara, sorry, I guess Bennett too, healing isn't great. Healing just doesn't really have a place in the TCG. If you think about the food that people play, the only time you really play the healing food is cycle with NRE. In general, it's just not great. Maybe in a slower meta after the OTK stuff is nerfed, healing will be good. Against summon decks, it could be good. So I'm going to put her in niche. Fatui Pyre Agent, I'll put fine at best. He saw quite a lot of play up until Cyno came out. It was like the mainstay card you would run in the Ayaka deck at the time. I think his abilities aren't exactly anything special. It's kind of like very basic. Aside from that, it doesn't really do too much. You can make an argument that he's sexy, so he goes in the S tier, but different kind of tier list. Next up is the fish. Fish Moly, pretty solid, has a really good deck. Definitely not OP, not in the needs nerf tier. Just all around good card. Oz is strong. There's a really good deck that I played with, I think it's Ganyu and Kaching, and it was just like an AoE deck and it felt pretty strong. I think Oz is relatively solid. Maybe a summon deck is really good after the balance changes. I think it might be one of the best versions of summons. Yeah, up official in the all-around good card tier. In the same vein, I'm gonna put Ganyu there as well. I think they work very well together. There are other good Ganyu decks that you can use, but in general, I think this is like the best version of it. Electro Cryo, and you can just AoE, do a bunch of damage. Okay, Terror Shroom, I'm gonna be real with you. This card bad. The stacking mechanic is cool and it can get like a lot of damage if given the right situation, but it's just not good enough. You have to have like a lot of stars aligned. Your opponent can disrupt your game plan. It's just not great. Relatively unplayable. Dendro is a good reaction, so maybe in a slower meta or a different meta it might be okay. But right now, unplayable. They need to buff this shit. My queen, Jean, she's fine at best. I think she's closer to the all-around good card tier. I think it's just kind of, there isn't really many good decks for her right now. I think at some point, maybe with Klee, actually. Maybe she'll find a good deck. I think her disruption can be very powerful, but I hate to say it, but Cyno does it better. Her ability lets you swap your opposing player's characters out, but Cyno can just do it with Fire Burst. With Yoimiya ult and Cyno attacks, you just force swap repeatedly, so why play Jane? If she ever gets a buff, or even in a different meta with maybe Klee, or I don't know, just different cards, maybe she'll see play, because she's not a bad card. She's the kind of card you would put in your deck or make a deck around for tournaments, maybe. Like a good counter card. If you know what you're going to play against, if you can expect things, you can probably build something for her. But right now, as she stands, fine at best. Not a bad card, you can play her, but she's just not as good as other cards. The Kaya stand's going to hate me for this one, but he's pretty bad. I don't think I need to say much, he's just bad. The starting deck they give you, I believe, is Kaya, Sucrose, and Diluc. It's fine. Diluc is just better than Kaya. You use him a lot more to attack and to use your abilities. Kaya kind of acts as like a swap-in. Even so, you change your starting deck pretty quickly. I think people realize that he's a very good starting card. He explains the game very well, but aside from that, he doesn't really do anything special. Purple Hair Waifu Mami, Kaching, all around good card. I think coincidentally, these three cards sitting next to each other is pretty funny because this is, I think, their best deck. Is Fischl, Ganyu, Kaching. I think Ganyu is probably the best one out of the three, but Kaching, pretty strong card. I think that there's a lot of interesting things you can do with her skill, where you can like swap characters and then play the card to swap in and deal damage. Or by using it, you give like Electro Infusion to Kaching. And there's a lot of interesting things you can do, and given the right matchups, the card is pretty strong. I do think it suffers a bit from just being not as flexible as like Cyno is, but I think it is a pretty strong standalone card. One thing I will say, I said that the best deck for these three cards is together. I do think Kaching features, or like it sees play in a Cyno deck with I believe it's Yoimiya, Cyno, Kaching. I think that's probably Kaching's best deck, but in general, these three cards are seen pretty often together. Aside from that, Kaching, Cyno, Yoimiya, that's probably the best deck in the game. All right, Magu Kinky, goes without saying, one of the best cards in the game. I said Kinky, I meant Kinky. We're gonna call him Kinky. Kinky boy over here, I think it's pretty strong. You can do a lot of like, and rapid fire your opponent down with some turrets, get a bunch of summons, just shoot them and keep repeatedly casting them. Probably the best version of summon decks is Magu. Mega Kinky's his name? Okay. Mega Kinky, I think, is probably the best version of summon decks. I personally do think probably a bit worse than Cyno, but you could argue that he might be better because he doesn't need setup. Cyno needs like Yoimiya ult to do all the crazy things, but I think in general that Cyno deck is stronger, so I will put Magu, Kinky, whatever, in the middle of this tier. Better than Nayaka, worse than Cyno. Okay, Mirror Maiden. I had to read what this card did twice, talk to Twitch chat a little bit. After reassessing, this card sucks. I thought this card did more than it said. I thought it applied damage at the end of turn, not that it just increased hydro damage. This card's bad, right in the unplayable tier, worse than Barb. At least Barb has some music notes going on. Okay, so Mona being mainly used as a quick swap, even if she enables some comps, she probably isn't like strong enough to be all around good card. I would say fine at best, probably somewhere like here. I'd say probably third in here. The fast swap is actually pretty cool though. It enables like a lot of different decision making. So maybe we'll see Mona's rise at some point, but right now, not great. Ningguang's gonna fall into the pretty niche tier. I think ability wise, very not great. I think her abilities just aren't very strong. But being Geo, she is paired with Noelle pretty often. And Noelle is a bit more playable. So pretty niche, probably the worst within this tier. Just not exactly great, I'll be honest. There's not much else to say, right? It's just not great. Noelle, on the other hand, also not very good, but better. I would say probably fine at best. Probably the closest to like a shield character being viable. Her kit in general is just a bit better than the other ones. She still has like more potential than just being like a shield wielder. So I'd say Noelle's probably the best of the ones, followed by the boy who we'll look at shortly. I think Ocean is not unplayable. I think summons in general aren't very strong. Probably niche, better than most of these characters though. Probably at the top of the niche tier, honestly. Probably something like this. If the cards move, there we go. Razor is just not Sino, right? Normal attack, electro damage, and then like big damage that does more damage for I think it's 2 instances. It's not great. There's a really good Genshin TCG player named Super Idiot. I haven't really followed the scene too much, but he was arguably the best player for a very long time. Asked him for a Razor deck when I meant to ask for a Sino deck, and he was like, "Why?" He's like, "Are you sure?" And I was like, what? I thought he was gonna be good. He's like, no. Are you sure? Are you sure you want a deck? Pretty niche. I think probably more playable than the bottom tier, but again, not very playable. Okay, the big boy himself, the dude, the homie, the hilly dude, not bad. Probably with Noelle. I'd say a bit worse than Noelle. In terms of attractiveness, we'd put him here, but it's not the attractiveness tier. So fine at best, just not great. Doesn't really have a spot in the game. Might have a better spot later. As it stands, it's just kind of a niche flex. I know some players you experimented with him in tournament lists. Some probably saw some pretty decent success, but in general, just not as good as the top. The girl from Metamorphosis, Sucrose. I actually found her really fun, but she's not very good. I found playing her very fun. Not particularly great. Probably a bit higher than this. The Anemo like reaction can be pretty strong, but she's just not Jean, right? She wants to be Jean and she can't. She just like can't keep up. 5-star versus 4-star diff, exactly. It's the meme, right? It's like you versus like the girl she tells you not to worry about, or the girl he tells you not to worry about. It's literally like Sucrose and Jean. It's the same thing for Sino and like Razor, but instead it's like you and then the guy that has just ruined your life. He's everywhere. He stole your girl, stole your job, he got you fired. He has a better car than you. What's the Tanner from High School copy pasta? That's Razor and Sino. Hey, Razor, what's up? It's Sino. You remember me from high school? Yeah, it's I hope you're doing good, buddy. I'm doing great. Remember that girl you really liked, Ayaka? Yeah, well, she's my wife now. We've been together for like 5 years. I drive this like Ford F-150. It's great. Also, remember, Xianling is kind of similar to what we were just talking about with the wants to be them but better thing versus Yui. She's better in a summon deck. Gooba is very good in a summon deck, but her alt giving you, or burst, sorry, League of Legends player. Giving you pyro application is definitely not bad. The downside is it's 2 usages, I believe, versus 2 rounds on Yui's alt, so you can't abuse it as much. Definitely not bad. Goba, Guoba, whatever. It looks like a Gooba. I don't care if it said Guoba, Goba. It looks like a Gooba, dude. He's a goofy Gooba, you know? Anyway, the bear summon is pretty good with other summons. Aside from that, it's just not as, she's just not as good, sorry, as Yui. I'd say all around good card. Definitely has some application. Might be fine at best, honestly, but I'm going to put her here. She's better than Jean, and I think Jean is like the epitome of fine at best. So I think I would put her at the bottom of all around good card tier. Water Twink, it's pretty good. You know, I feel like he's so good in the actual game that they had to make him playable in the TCG. I'm not going to say his name because I can't pronounce it and I get flamed every time. His ability, decreasing damage, isn't great, but his burst, for only 2 energy, gives you Hydro Application, which, if you're running a freeze comp, can be really good. Freeze comps aren't really as popular currently, but having the ability to have Hydro Application is just pretty solid. It's good. I wouldn't say he's the best card in the game. I think he is probably an all-around good card, probably a little bit above Xianling. I'd say something like this, actually. Oh, nope. I'd say something like this. Honestly, it might be better. Might be more up here. But I'm going to keep him here because I personally have a lot of faith in the trio of Kaching, Fischl, and Ganyu. So I'm going to put him here in the all-around good card tier. I think we'll see a lot of Xingqiu. I think Xingqiu. Water Twink. I think we'll see a lot of the Water Femboy after the balance changes. And finally, the queen herself, Yoimiya. I've talked very highly of Yoimiya this entire video, and for good reasons. If you played Genius Invokation TCG, you've seen Yoimiya. If you played any tournaments, you've played against Yoimiya. The 2 best decks in the game are Yoimiya decks, in my opinion. And I think it's like pretty, I don't even want to say my opinion. I think if there were stats in the game, it would just reflect it. Sino, Yui, I would say Kaching, different variants, but I would say that's like the staple, Sino and Yui. And then Ayaka Yui are absolutely broken. She's getting nerfed, she's getting gutted. They're nerfing her first. And for that, she deserves her own tier, which is going to be, how did they print this? Yui is just absolutely absurd. It's not even close. Gets her own tier, without a doubt in my mind. I strongly believe Yui is the best card in the game. It is not even close. If you were to look at the, we'll make a video on the event cards and all that stuff at some point. But if you were to look at them, Yoimiya is the equivalent to Paimon. Paimon giving like 4 dice, NRE cycling your deck. Yoi is better than that. Yoi would be Paimon if it was 2 die, or Paimon if it was 1 die. Yoi is absurd. She is so strong. Her burst is insane. It just ends games on turn like 3 usually, occasionally 2, usually 3. It is Xianling but better. It is every card but better. She broken. She dummy OP. Very needed balance change. Now really quickly, I want to go through the tiers one last time and just reorder them. Top of the tier, Yoimiya, not a question in my mind. Give her the crown. She gets the Fortnite crown. Needs nerf, Sino, Magu, both. Magu's being nerfed, Sino's not, but you know, as I said, the needs nerf tier is a mix of needs nerf and just very strong. Best cards in the game, overpowered. So this is like probably a pretty good order. Magu's probably higher than Sino. I mean, he is being nerfed. I think Sino is the better card when comboed with Yoi, or its other like, I guess just any other support cards. But by itself, I think Magu is probably the better card. All around good cards. You have Chungyun, Kale, Ganyu, Keqing, Fischl, Water Twink, and Xianling. I think this is, again, pretty cohesive, just a solid tier. Fine at best, Jean, Pyro Fatui, ooh, Mona, Noelle, and Daddy, very solid tier. Pretty niche, Sucrose, Oceanid, Diona, Diluc, Bennett, Ningguang, and Razor. I think the ordering for this tier is probably fine. Diluc honestly might be worse than Bennett. I haven't played enough Bennett to have a proper opinion on it, so I would probably leave it as is. His burst can do a lot of damage out of nowhere, and I think Diona is probably better than both of them. And then finally, unplayable. The order doesn't matter. Look, I'm a Barbara hater in the real game too, but I think she's unplayable. Kaya doesn't do anything. He's useless. This girl's useless, and then this boy's useless. Boy, girl, they, them, I don't know. All in all, this is what I think about the Genius Invocation meta, or I guess how you would rate the character cards. Obviously, based on what kind of decks you like to play, based on what you find fun, you can play anything. All the cards are very good, but I think this is the nearly objective tier list of how the cards are and what the best cards are. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to subscribe. My name is Luker. I upload Genshin videos multiple times a week here on this channel, and I stream over on Twitch at the same name, so be sure to check it out. I love y'all. Peace out, Cub Scouts, and I'll see you guys next time.